Finding property deals in a super hot market can be something that many new and even experienced property investors really struggle with. Is it that there's no deals to be had, or is it simply they're not looking in the right place? Hey, if you're watching my videos for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel I share with you my 15 plus years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing business. On the journey to becoming a property investor, one of the core things that you absolutely need to master first is the ability to be able to get out there and find good deals. Yet so many people really struggle with this skill. I remember when I first started in property investing, probably nearly 16 years ago now, and I really sucked at doing this. I absolutely struggled to find those deals and get them done. But here's the thing, the market at that time was very different. In fact, it was the complete opposite of what it is right now. Currently, there's just so many people chasing so few properties. There's a massive difference between the supply and demand. There's too many people chasing too few properties. At that time, the market was heading into a major recession, and there were so many properties that were on the market that were cheap, properties getting repossessed, but there were so few buyers. People were really concerned that the market was going to crash out further. They weren't buying, they were sitting on their hands, and there's very little money around to be able to buy the properties. And at that time, little old me wanted to be a property investor. So I started to learn the skills of how to find these deals, how to negotiate them, and very quickly I actually started stumbling across quite a lot of deals. But that was really more luck rather than ability, because there were just so many deals, so many opportunities out there to be had. In this market, if you want to find deals, you really need to skill up in the right way of finding those opportunities. A deal is really an opportunity to make money from property, and there can be two ways that you can approach looking for these type of deals. It could either be based on location, or it could be based on strategy. If you're looking for a deal based on location, for example, it might be that you're looking for something in Birmingham. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as there's an opportunity to make some money from it, you're quite flexible on what type of strategy we'll use on it. Alternatively, maybe you're more strategy focused, and what you are looking for is 4-bedroom properties that are mid-terrace, larger Edwardian style houses that you can turn into a HMO. So that way you're more strategy focused. So either you're looking in a location and anything within that location that fits the bill that you can make some money from, or alternatively looking for a specific strategy. Now, if you're quite new and early in your journey, I'd strongly recommend you go down the strategy route, because it means that you are much more clearer in terms of what you're looking for. On the other hand, if you're somebody more experienced, you understand property, you're familiar with more of the strategies that can be utilized to make money, then yes, absolutely location-wise works. A common misconception is it's only a BMV that can be a deal. BMV being below market value. Yes, absolutely, if it's below market value, that is a deal. However, it doesn't mean that a deal can only be below market value. There can be many different ways to make money from property. Fundamentally, there's 3 major mistakes that people tend to make when looking for deals. Firstly, they're really not very clear what it is that they're looking for, and they'll spend hours aimlessly scrolling through Rightmove looking for something that might jump out and grab their attention. But if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you're not really going to spot it when it shows up in front of you. By being clear in terms of what you're looking for will make it much more easier to spot that opportunity when it shows up. The next biggest mistake we see many people making is they're looking in the wrong location for that type of deal. For example, they're looking for heavily discounted properties in London in a very strong market. You are really going to struggle to find those kind of opportunities, as it's going to be trying to find a needle in a haystack. Yes, they might exist and there may be very few of those. However, it's going to be exceptionally difficult to try and find those. The third and final mistake is giving up too quickly. Too many people will just dip their toe in the water to give it a little test, not really giving it enough time, don't get the result, and then give up. Whereas actually what's required in this business is persistence. For instance, as many times I've spoken to people who are doing direct to vendor marketing, where they're writing letters directly to the owners of a property in order to be able to start a conversation about buying their property. They maybe send, say, 10 letters out and don't get a response. And then they give up and say, hey, I sent some letters out, but I didn't get a response. I say, how many letters did you send? Say 10. I'm thinking 10 letters, you've not had a response, you've given up. You probably need to send hundreds of letters to be able to find that gem. The methods that we have used to find deals over the last 15 years has really evolved. As the markets change, we've adapted and evolved the strategies that we use as well. And that's because certain techniques work much better under certain market conditions. And as those conditions change, we need to adapt the type of techniques that we're using. In a highly heated property market like the current one now, we tend to have multiple marketing techniques that we're using to find the opportunities. But primarily, we're focusing on 2 key things. One is either we're looking for a seller that's motivated enough to be able to structure a deal with us where they'll either be flexible on the price or they'll be flexible on the terms in terms of how we put that deal together. Or secondly, we're looking for a building or a plot of land where we can add significant value and be able to extract profit that way. So our marketing is really geared into those two things, either finding a motivated seller or finding a building that where we can add significant value. In our business, there's more than 50 methods that we use to find property deals, and they primarily fall into two categories. We either go out looking for the seller of the property, i.e. what we call direct to vendor, or what we're doing is working through an intermediary where someone's sitting between us and the owner of the property in terms of finding the property and also negotiating that deal. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 techniques from the 50 plus that we have available. And if you want to learn more about the other strategies we have and you want to learn more in-depth techniques and the negotiating methods that we use on our courses, then reach out to us and we can tell you more about those courses. The first method I want to share with you is a direct to vendor strategy that we use to go and look for the seller. Sometimes when someone's looking to sell their property, they don't necessarily want to work with estate agents for many different reasons. It might be they don't want to pay the fees, it might be they don't like working with agents, it might be they want to control who's going to be actually walking through their house and coming inside to have a look around. Whatever the reason be, what it does demonstrate that there's some degree of motivation. Now, I've been going on about motivated sellers in this video, but let me explain exactly what I mean. If somebody puts up the house up for sale, they're motivated to sell that property. Now, they may not be as motivated as somebody, for example, who's about to get their property repossessed in about a week's time. They are much more motivated, they're much more keen, they're going to be more flexible in terms of working with you to get a deal done. That might be flexibility around the price, i.e. for us to get a lower price in exchange for getting the deal done quicker. Or alternatively, it might be how we structure that deal, the flexibility around that, the terms of the deal. For example, we might be able to get it to work as a lease option, but that flexibility comes because somebody's motivated and they're keen to work with you. So in this example, what we're looking for is somebody that's got their property for sale, but actually they haven't gone down the traditional estate agency route. What they do is actually have their property listed as for sale by owner. So where would you look for these? Well, there's many places. One of the easiest places, for example, is on Gumtree. If you jump onto Gumtree for properties for sale, you can specify those that are for sale by agents and those which are privately available directly from the owner. Now, really, a lot of what we're talking about here is lead generation as opposed to deal generation, because deals come from leads, but leads have to be filtered to find the deals within them. Just because somebody's got their property for sale directly by the owner, it doesn't mean that actually that they're going to be motivated enough to be able to do a deal with you. But it does mean that you get in front of them to have a conversation, to understand a little bit more deeper, where you can build that rapport, ultimately the trust, to be able to work out what's going on and whether there may be an opportunity for you to come up with a solution that works for them and it works for you as well, because you can turn that into a deal. The next method I want to share with you to find deals is using intermediaries. Now, an intermediary essentially can take many different forms. For example, it could be an estate agent where they're sitting between you and the seller, or it could be maybe even be an accountant who knows one of their clients is looking to sell property. They're quite keen to sell because of a certain financial situation. They're sitting between you and the seller. Alternatively, it could even be a sourcer, a deal sourcer, somebody whose business it is to find deals and sell them on, because there's somebody sitting in between the seller and you. When dealing with intermediaries, our approach is different from that when dealing direct to vendors, because there's another party involved in that transaction and we need to understand what their needs and motives are to make sure we're satisfying them. So for example, if you're buying from an estate agent, the estate agent wants to see that you're ready to buy, you've got your financial situation in order. For example, your mortgage is ready, you've got your deposit ready, your solicitors organized, you're good to go. So really is about working with them to get the best out of them as well, but also satisfying their needs. One intermediary strategy is auctions. Often when people get involved or interested in property, they look at, where do I find cheap deals? They're watching TV, they see Homes and the Hammer, they see everyone's going to the auction, so let's head off to the auctions. And they think that's where the deals are to be had. Now, that can be the case, but often this is the realm of very experienced property investors. It can be traders often selling properties through the auction as well, and it might be other buyers in that room that are also very keen on that property as well. And in my experience of auctions, they work in cycles. So there'll be times where you can get some fantastic deals in the auction, and there'll be other times you've got no chance of getting a deal in the auction. And right now, I think we're in the latter, where there's very few good deals to be had because people are overpaying, they're going crazy in the auction rooms, they're paying way above what might be the market value of that property. There's actually 3 ways you can buy a property at auction. One is in the auction room itself, where you turn up, you stick your hand up and you bid for that. Personally, I think that's probably the worst deal that you're probably going to get, because at the end of it, you're going to be the one that's prepared to pay more than anybody else in that room. Secondly, you could actually do a deal before it goes into the room and sometimes you'll see auction lots have been withdrawn and a deal's been done, it's been sold prior. That means a deal's been agreed before even actually entered the auction room. Now, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get it cheaper, but it could be a certain type of deal that you want to lock in, and depending on how you structure that, you might be able to get that deal done. The third technique, and the one that we really like to use, is post-auction sales, i.e. properties that haven't sold during the auction and are left unsold. Now, those that are left unsold are unsold for a reason. Most often it's because they've been overpriced, they're too expensive, or they're not the right type of stock for an auction room. So for instance, it might be a nicely decorated house that's ready to go for rental, and often people that come to the auction, they don't look for properties like that. They look for ones that need a bit of work, a fixer-upper they can add some value to. However, for us, the real gems are the ones where they're problematic properties, where they haven't sold, especially around paperwork and title issues. That means they haven't got their paperwork in order, so the buyer's really uncertain what they're buying, and often those properties don't sell. But if we can take that property after the auction, we can sort out that paperwork, i.e. we can fix that problem, that can be a great opportunity. Many people will sell at the auction because they think it's the fastest way to get it done. It's certainty. In 28 days, they're going to have the money in their pocket and that deal is going to be done. Now, if it fails to sell at the auction, how do you think that person might be feeling? They're already at the end of the road. They're probably going to be flexible to work with you to fix whatever problem is there so you can get a deal done. And we've made huge profit just by fixing paperwork on a property without even laying a hand on the actual property itself to be able to improve it. It's really just getting the paperwork in order and significantly improving the value. The third method I want to share with you is another intermediary method, and that's on Rightmove. Now, before you bite my head off and think, Rightmove, I'm here to learn some golden nuggets, not be able to pick up this stuff that everybody's doing. I have got some nuggets to you. Make sure you watch all the way to the end. Many people jump on Rightmove, they'll scroll hours and hours and hours up to 2 o'clock in the morning trying to find a deal, and they really struggle, or they've got their notification set and it pings them a message as soon as a new property is listed, and you're straight round, you're ringing the agent, you say, hey, can I get that viewing booked in for that new property that you've got listed today? And they're saying, we're not taking any more viewings, because we've already had 50 viewings booked and we're not going to take any more because we know we get an offer done in that. And you're frustrated because you're thinking, hey, I rang in the morning, the property's only just been listed and it's already unavailable. And it may be before the end of the day, they've got enough offers and that deal is done. And that doesn't work because that's what everybody's doing. What you have to do is something different. The best way to approach Rightmove and the methods that we use to find deals on Rightmove, by looking for the clues that lead to the gems. So for example, when searching a Rightmove, we're not looking for what's been listed recently, which is the default way properties are listed. We're looking for ones that have been on the market the longest period of time, i.e. they're sitting around, they're getting a little bit stale, they've been a bit stuck, and those are ones that haven't sold. Those type of properties we're interested in. We're also interested in properties that are sold subject to contract. You think sold subject to contract, why are we interested in those? But they might be sold subject to contract for maybe 4 months or more. What that means is they've got a sale agreed, but they're now still stuck because the buyer hasn't completed that transaction. You can imagine the frustration that the seller might be feeling, especially when they're 4 months in and it still hasn't completed. An opportunity to be able to jump in and maybe do a deal. Another clue that we'll also look for is properties that have been on the market, say for 3 months, that are still unsold. What that means is they've been on the market for maybe nearly 100 days and the seller is most probably starting to get a little bit frustrated now, as it's not one of those properties that the estate agent promised they're going to have herds of people in here, we're going to get it sold for you in a week. That hasn't happened for whatever reason. Your job is to dig deeper and find out why it hasn't sold and what opportunity that might present for you. Another clue we're looking for on Rightmove is price drops, where there's been a number of price drops over a period of time. Now, this type of data isn't easy to find on Rightmove, but it is available. We use certain tools and techniques to be able to get that data together. So when we can find out, let's say a property was listed at £100,000 and then it was dropped to 95,000, then it's dropped to 90,000, now it's on at 89,000. We can see over a period of time that that price has dropped because there's been probably not enough interest and the seller is becoming more and more keen. Because this information isn't obvious, again, it gives us clues that leads to a potential gem. I'll share with you one more technique we use on Rightmove to find those clues. That's properties that are up for sale and to let at the same time. Now, essentially what that means is the owner is really keen to get away from that property. It may be they've got a new job, they'll need to relocate quite quickly, whether they sell the property or whether they're having to tenant the property, they just need to be able to move on fairly quickly. So why is that a clue for us? Well, that could potentially lead to a lease option where you got control of a property over time with a right to buy it. So essentially you could rent it for a period of time with a right to be able to purchase that property. A very, very powerful technique. Remember, all of these techniques are lead generators for us. They generate us a lead where something might be a potential deal, and then we need to explore it further to see if we can convert it to a deal. But it's much more likely to turn into a deal because of the clues that you've started with. As a reward for watching the video this far, I'd like to share another little bonus technique with you. It may be you're looking to go direct to vendor so you can have that conversation directly with the owner of the property. Well, the vast majority of property that's sold is via estate agents. Probably 90% plus of transactions are done via the estate agents, and the estate agents don't want you to be in front of the owner speaking to them. They're the intermediary, they want you to go through them. Well, there are some estate agents, for example, like Strike, where the owner lists the property themselves up for sale. And what that means is you'll find the property on the market on Rightmove, but what you're able to do is get to the owner directly and have a conversation with them, because mostly those type of properties, the viewings and the conversations are done directly with the owner. Again, it may not be a deal, but actually it's an opportunity to have a conversation, to find out more about that owner, to see whether there might be some motivation there. And a big tip I can give you at this stage is something that it took us a long time to learn, is a lot of the deals are done in the follow-up. What that means is when we first have a conversation with the owner of a property, it may be what we're proposing doesn't really work for them, and the answer is no, they're not interested. However, what we do, we keep in touch. We stay in touch, we follow up with them, we see if anything's changed, and sometimes the situation, the circumstances might change. And time is your biggest friend. What that means is the longer this situation goes on for them, they're much more likely to become flexible in order to work with you, be that a certain price or the way you're actually wanting to structure the deal. What I've done here, just shared a few techniques with you. If you want to learn this in depth and the many other different techniques that exist in order to find deals, and of course the negotiation element as well, then make sure you reach out to us. We'll let you know about our training, programs and mentorships. What I'd love to know from you is what's the best method you've come across to find property deals. Pop it in the comment section below and I'll do my very best to respond to all the comments. And if you're enjoying this content, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click on my face over here to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And what I've got lined up next for you on this video over here is the house buying process broken down into individual steps so you can see exactly how it works. Look forward to seeing you on this video next.